unpacking today's headlines. This is Souls and Liberty in Depth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to In Depth, the production of Souls and Liberty brought to you in partnership with MyPillow.com. It's taken decades to get to this point, but in just a few seconds, the Catholic Charities illegal immigration scam has been brought to an end.
Does the president intend to permanently cut off funding to NGOs that are bringing illegal foreign nationals to the country, such as Catholic Charities?
I am actually quite certain that the president signed an executive order that did just that, and I can point you to that.
That's it. It's all over. The gravy train had done pulled into the station, and it's time for everybody to just get off now. If there's an organization swampier than the D.C. swamp, it's the liberal Catholic swamp. And just so everyone's clear, this is not an attack on the church established by Christ that any loyal son of the church would die for if necessary. Nope. This is an attack against the enemies of the church within the church. The levels of corruption within the church engaged in by individual members of the church are manifold. Financial, liturgical, theological, legal, spiritual, and so on. With all the talk of Trump purging the deep state, it makes faithful Catholics want to create a purge novena for the church. But of course, in politics, we the people have a say. In our Lord's church, he has the say, ultimately. Works through people, but it's all under his divine providence. Catholic Charities is a large part, of a giant social justice network in the Catholic Church. There is Catholic Relief Services, the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, Catholic Climate Covenant, and a host of other smaller efforts to advance a decidedly anti-Catholic agenda on the political front. Now, do they do some good here and there? Yeah, some, probably, sure. Are there some faithful Catholics in the rank and file of these groups? Pretty likely. But the leadership of these groups is the problem. And the leadership has turned sucking from the government teats into an art form. Billions and billions of U.S. tax dollars have been poured into the various agencies across scores of jurisdictions across the country. Federal, state, county, and city. The money is lobbied for by a team of what amounts to professional lobbyists at the USCCB headquarters in D.C. The USCCB, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, is itself a swamp, a centralized bullying mechanism to push a liberal agenda in every diocese in the country. Sometimes that's about theology. For example, collectively deciding to allow sacrilegious Holy Communion to be received by dozens and dozens of pro-child killing Catholic lawmakers. Staying silent about liturgical abuses or bad practices at Mass is another full-time commitment at USCCB headquarters. And let's not get started on the orchestrated cover-up by them of the homosexual clergy sex abuse scandal against thousands of altar boys over decades. On that point, it's worth noting that not a single sitting U.S. bishop resigned over their part in the notorious case of Cardinal Theodore McCarrick when it all came to light back in 2018. In fact, many members of the Bishops' Conference raced to the microphones to lie about their knowledge of his evils. I didn't know anything. I knew nothing. Donald Worrell, Wilton Gregory, Blaise Supich, Kevin Farrell, Robert McElroy, now the current man sitting in that seat in D.C., every one of them is a cardinal. Flat out liars, and not just lying, but lying to cover up sexual crimes against young boys. Why is that an important background? Because each of them has been a luminary in the church's social justice crap and the USCCB's raiding of the U.S. Treasury under the guise of helping the poor. While they've been pushing that and grabbing billions, they've also been hard at work trying to reorient the church down a path of decidedly anti-Catholic theology. They've been part of 3 generations now of Catholic bishops who have done their best to dismantle the church in many areas. And in the area of social justice, they have distorted and perverted Catholic teaching and sucked the U.S. Treasury dry in the process. There are many, many parallels between how the deep church and the deep state operate. There's, in fact, a lot of crossover. And now that Trump is in charge, well, to the extent that the bishops and their lobbyists at the USCCB are in bed with the deep state, which is a lot, they're getting whacked in the process as well. Millions of faithful Catholics have been waiting for such a moment, praying for it, reporting on it, petitioning for it, and here we are. Prayers answered. Choke off much of the bishop's money supply, and things will begin to improve just sort of through natural attrition. Many of the people, the staff and leaders who run these outfits and push these programs don't actually embrace the authentic faith, including many of the clergy. They've been used and abused. They've abused the bride of Christ and thrown souls overboard in the process. But despite their best efforts, taxpayer theft, doctrinal perversion, liturgical abuse, spiritual devastation, they've failed. The Holy Spirit has let these dogs have their day. A new, more vitalic faith is emerging from the rubble of their liberal social justice garbage that many of us have been subjected to for our entire lives. Like the deep state, they won't go quietly into the night, but also like the deep state, they do hear the beat of those hoofs getting closer and closer. Time is running out, and not a moment too soon. Yet again, heaven has sent an emperor to free the church. All right, join me now to talk about the continuing storm of common sense breaking over the deep state in D.C., Stephen Wynn. Stephen, how are you, man?
Doing all right, thank you.
I want to focus on some, of course, there's a bunch of stuff to talk about today, all kinds of stuff. I mean, you can't keep up with it. I was telling a friend just, as he's saying, like, how are you guys keeping up with this? I'm like, who says we're keeping up with it? This is like holding a teaspoon in front of a fire hose. It's crazy. But there's a number of things here that I want to, take a peek at and just say, Trump's on a tear. I mean, he is on an absolute tear with everything. So, start us off. I mean, I don't know, reach into the grab bag and pick out whatever you want.
Yeah, I right. It's, there's an embarrassment of riches, basically. I think something really important to look at is the executive order that he signed on Monday, essentially banning child mutilation. And we've been lamenting, we've been fighting that practice for years now here in the U.S. Portions of the medical establishment have just gone off the rails promoting that. And so on Monday he signed an executive order, and the title says it all. It tells the truth. It's titled Protecting Children from Chemical and Surgical Mutilation. And a couple of key portions say this. Across the country today, medical professionals are maiming and sterilizing a growing number of impressionable children under the radical and false claim that adults can change a child's sex through a series of irreversible medical interventions. This dangerous trend will be a stain on our nation's history, and it must end. Accordingly, it is the policy of the United States that it will not fund, sponsor, promote, assist, or support the so-called transition of a child from one sex to another, and it will rigorously enforce all laws that prohibit or limit these destructive and life-altering procedures. That is amazing. That is awesome.
Yeah,
he just lays it out. He tells it like it is.
Nails it right away. And of course, what did we have
Mm-hmm.
immediately from the mainstream media? Interviews with, because he banned, it's related. He banned transgenders from any active duty service in the military, any service actually in the military. And so all of a sudden, of course, all the sympathetic stories start coming out, and that's all they're doing. What's something that's, I have noticed in the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks an uptick on X of the incursion, I suppose you could say, into discussions from the radical left. It's just call them the left. There's nothing moderate about anybody on the left. They're all radicals, but radicals in a bad way. The media play of this, one of the reasons, let me just lay this out, and I want to get your reaction to it. One of the reasons the country was able to be decentralized and moved to the left socially was because of the media's mainstream media. That's all there was back in the 60s, 70s, 90s. Their ability to go find a victim of the big mean institution. Doesn't matter what it was. It could have been a law. It could have been government. It could have been some judge or court or the church or whatever. You pick whatever institution you want, and they'd go find a victim. And as a matter of fact, I know this for a fact because I was told this as a reporter plenty of times. Go find somebody. If they cry, that's great. Let's show the victim. And I see that happening again right now, and I see it happening on social media. There are individual social media postings of that sort of thing. Individuals on crying about their condition and this and whatever, big mean Trump and big mean church or whatever. But aside from that, I also see popping up now with regularity on social media, MSNBC, CNN, with those kinds of takes on, look at big old mean old Trump. There's the Nazi stuff and the fascist stuff and all that too, but I can see the media, mainstream media, doing again what they did so well before to steer the country off. You think that flies now? Won't fly as easily because it can be challenged, but how many crying mothers can you have? Oh, my 9-year-old boy was really a girl, and it's awful.
Right.
And, she wants to kill herself, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it worked before.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to have the impact. The legacy media is going to have the impact that they once did. They were very effective in telling only one side of the story when they were the absolute gatekeepers of information. That is not the case anymore. I've seen the sob stories that you're referring to coming out in recent days. I've also seen truth tellers, people who have unfortunately, gender confused folks who allowed themselves to be manipulated and then ultimately mutilated because of the deception that they swallowed. They have, expressed terrible regret for allowing themselves to be mutilated, and they have applauded Trump's executive order. They know that this will be a real turnaround, and so. I think it's much more of a level playing field. Sure, we can hear and listen to the one-sided stories that the legacy media is telling us, but we are also now able to hear the truth. And as we know, the truth wins out. So I'm much more optimistic than I would have been prior to X coming on the scene.
Yeah, there we are. Yeah, good. Again, once again, X to the rescue. Let's shift from the question of kids for a moment. I know we do want to touch on Catholic hospitals participating in all of that, but let's stick with the transgender thing for a moment. When Trump issued his executive order about trans in the military, of course, once again, the media is mainstream media. Which I guess I should stop calling them mainstream media. I don't really think they're the mainstream media. They're more like the marginal media now. Six, I believe it's 6 in total, folks, transgenders in various branches of the military have now filed federal suit, which of course we knew that was going to be coming, saying we've been in this 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, it hasn't, impacted the performance and blah, 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 and all that of, military readiness and et cetera. This lawsuit, I think in particular, will really set the stage for these arguments to be had on social media. Again, you've got the public square. That's what's so cool about this. Of course, there's going to be evil, and evil's really dominated for all these past decades. But now evil gets to be challenged, and I think that's the point. So there has to be good, logical, important arguments happening in the public square of social media. And I think that lawsuit is probably going to be one of those things sitting right smack in the center. Yeah, because a lot of people go, well, okay, so that's a guy who thinks he's a woman and maybe he's had stuff cut off and he's got long hair now and he wears jewelry. But, if you can fly an F-18, which is one of the people I was listening to, if you can fly an F-18, who cares? That needs a direct response. And again, social media allows this to now happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are going to be a lot of precedents set here over the next year plus with cases like the one you're referring to, cases that haven't even begun to materialize yet. We need to make sure that that folks who basically, we need to make sure that everyone is given a voice, because we know the other side, the opponents of Trump and all these initiatives, they're going to be given a microphone, and the volume is going to be cranked all the way up by the legacy media. And so we need to make sure that that the other side, the truth tellers, are heard every bit as much, so that we can be informed, so that these cases can be pushed forward, and come out a success, basically have a much greater chance of succeeding anyway than they otherwise would. So
yep, you want a war, and you want a freedom of speech used properly, all of that activated now. Here we go.
Yep.
Let's go back to the kids portion of the whole trans thing, Stephen, and particularly from a Catholic interest level. Not necessarily the morality of it, but the abuse of this. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I just think that over the past week, it's been very eye-opening for Catholics in particular, and probably pretty sobering for a lot of us out there when we see institutions, the USCCB on immigration, the influx of criminal aliens, for example, who are espousing viewpoints, arguing for positions that really are not Catholic. We see the same kind of thing happening with this particular story. In recent months, it's a wake-up call, I think for U.S. Catholics. In recent months, a group called Do No Harm, basically a group that tries to awaken people to the medical industry, where it has gone completely off the rails. One of them, of course, being mutilation of children. They released a report showing that more than 520 minors received, quote unquote, treatment from Catholic hospitals across the country. Basically, nearly 150 Catholic hospitals in 40 states provided children with hormone therapy, quote unquote therapy, or performed gender transition surgeries between 2019 and 2023. And that's over a 4-year period. More than 380 kids were given puberty blockers or hormone treatments, and more than 150 were sexually mutilated. They went under the knife, basically, and that is irrevocable damage, basically. This is in Catholic hospital systems. This was being done, and I don't know. It's just eye-opening and very sobering to realize that just because something is branded Catholic does not mean it is so, and it means that Catholics everywhere in the United States, we have to hold these people to account. We have to really kind of put Catholic institutions under scrutiny. We've got to watch them to make sure that they are indeed Catholic, that they are indeed promoting and following the precepts of the church.
And on that score, I mean, every hospital is located in somebody's diocese, some bishop's diocese or archdiocese. I remember we did a story back in the St. Michael's Church militant time in Detroit, Archdiocese of Detroit. There are 7 hospitals that have Catholic designation or Catholic association in that archdiocese. 6 of the 7 prescribe birth control. I believe, might be off on this, I believe all 6 of them also perform sterilization operations. They wouldn't do abortions, but they had the one case, I can't remember the name of the hospital now, but the resident gynecologist at the Catholic hospital was also the medical director for Planned Parenthood of Michigan. So if somebody would call up that hospital and say, I'd like to have an abortion, or, call that department or office, whatever. And they say, well, no, you can't. Oh, I'm sorry, we're a Catholic hospital. We can't do that. But here's the number you should dial, and there's where that's referring out for abortion. It was referring to the gynecologist who was also an abortionist upstate Michigan. And that was brought to the attention of the Archbishop at the time, Alan Vigneron. Again, nothing happened. They write a little strongly worded letter. They certainly wrote letters about, our work. And you couldn't, just, we're all Catholic and everything. No, sorry, you're not Catholic is what you're allowing to go on when you can stop it. And that was the point. That happens a heck of a lot more, I think, than people realize in the great big monster Catholic Inc. Again, nothing to do with the faith. This has everything to do with business, literally business, ka-ching, as usual. And, it really is revolting. There's a bunch of stuff going on, Stephen, I want to get to right on the other side of this break, but it's crazy stuff going on. We could go on for hours and hours and hours. We could just actually not go to sleep, which is kind of like what we do. But bear with us. We'll be back in a second. If you like what we do here, if you like how we say it, if you like how we present things, if you like how we tie the spiritual, theological, philosophical stuff in with the political and the legal and bring together souls and liberty, please click on the donate button. That's available on the site that you're looking at right now. In the meantime, we're going to step aside for one quick little second and come right back. Thank you.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
All right, welcome back. Well, of course, the fireworks. Boy, there were fireworks on Capitol Hill yesterday with regard to RFK and the Health and Human Services nomination. President Trump put him up for. Just take a look at this.
President Trump has asked me to end the chronic disease epidemic and make America healthy again. And I'm
so
in
is
a
that
unique
the only reason
position.
why you're at HHS? Is that the only
me.
reason why then you're at the HHS to address that one issue?
President Trump has asked me because I'm in a unique position to end that. And that is what I'm doing. And if we don't solve that problem, Senator, all of the other disputes we have about who's paying and whether it's insurance companies, whether it's providers, whether it's HMOs, whether it's patients or families, all of those are moving deck chairs around on the Titanic. Our ship is sinking. Our 60% increase in Medicaid over the past 4 years is the biggest budget line now, and it's growing faster than any other. And no other nation in the world has what we have here. No other nation has a chronic disease. We have the highest chronic disease burden of any country in the world. We had, during COVID, we had 16% of the COVID deaths in a country. We only have 4.2% of the world's population. We had a higher death count than any country in the world. And when CDC was asked why, they said it's because Americans are the sickest people on earth. The average person who died from COVID, American, had 3.8 chronic diseases. This is an existential threat economically to our military, to our health, to our sense of well-being. And it is a priority for President Trump. And that's why he asked me to run the agency. And if I'm privileged to be confirmed, that's exactly what I'll do.
All right, Stephen, that's you really laid out the sort of the big mission there. Americans are dying, massively unhealthy, all of that stuff. And how could anybody be arguing against this stuff? we're getting into a little bit later here, how all of a sudden the Elizabeth Warrens and the Patty Murrays and all those start going crazy. Abortion. You want to keep money. So, I mean, they're trying to like impugn his integrity that he wants to be head of HHS so he can enrich himself off lawsuits against the pharmaceutical companies over their vaccines. And I mean, the whole thing is just preposterous, really. Since when does a Kennedy have to go do something to enrich himself? They're enriched off grandfather Joe Kennedy's bootlegging business. They're doing pretty fine with that. But there was another point. It's not just Americans in general, which is certainly part of the point, make America healthy again. But he, because of all of his sort of childhood advocacy stuff he's done for pretty much his career, made this point, and we'll take a look at it. And then when we come back, I want you to comment on it.
When I launched my campaign, it was about uniting Americans, Democrats and Republicans. There's no issue that should unite us more than this chronic health epidemic. There's no such thing as Republican children or Democratic children. These are our kids. 66% of them are damaged. I know what a healthy kid looks like because I had so many of them in my family. I didn't know anybody with a food allergy growing up, peanut allergy. Why do 5 of my kids have allergies? Why are we seeing these explosions in diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, neurological diseases, depression? All of these things that are related to toxics in the environment. Why can't we just agree with each other to put differences about so many issues, intractable issues aside, and say, we're going to end this? I don't think anybody is going to be able to do this like I have because of my peculiar experience, because I've litigated against these agencies. When you litigate against them, you get a PhD in corporate capture and how to unravel it. I've written 6 books about these agencies. I know a lot about them and I know how to fix it. And there's nobody who will fix it the way that I do because I'm not scared of vested interests. I don't care. I'm not here because I want a position or a job. I have a very good life and a happy family. This is something I don't need. I want to do this because we're going to fix it. And the other thing is we are attracting now a caliber of people to HHS like never before in history. And they're entrepreneurs, they're disruptors, they're innovators of immense talent that are walking away, many of them from growing concerns. They're not coming there for position. They're coming there because they want to save our country. And they're from across the political spectrum. And all these Democrats are opposed to me for partisan issues. They used to be my friends, agreed with me on all the environmental issues that I've been working on for my whole career. Now they're against me because anything that President Trump does, any decision he makes, has to be lampooned, derided, discredited, marginalized, vilified.
Well, that's pretty succinct.
It is. Yeah. And I love what he said. This isn't about Republican kids versus Democratic kids. The children do not have political affiliation. This is just about the health and welfare, the well-being of America's children. That's what it comes down to. And yeah, like you asked, who could be against this? And to your point,
they found a way.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Democrats and unfortunately several Republicans could. And to your point, he's a Kennedy. He's definitely independently wealthy. He doesn't need to become Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Right.
He could just like Trump. He could retire and be comfortable, spend time with his family for the rest of his life. But he loves this country. He loves America's children, and he wants this position because he wants to save the country, because he sees it unraveling. We're the unhealthiest nation in the Western world, and he wants to try to fix that in the sunset years of his life, and I just applaud him. And so I know he's got quite the hill to climb. I think we're seeing that with the just the rabid opposition to him, the insane unhinged responses to him in during his hearings. So I don't know. We've got to be praying for him and his confirmation.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's kind of interesting is that, again, talking about the social media impact of this. Every time one of the, like, what's her face, Elizabeth Warren or Patty Murphy or Castro, what's her name in Nevada?
Catherine Cortez Masto.
Cortez Masto. Every time one of them opens their mouth and is yelling and screaming at him or something, there's like 400,000 people jumping into research live, finding who's been giving them money and posting it while this is going on. So Elizabeth Warren has collected about $2.5 million last year from the medical establishment. Patty Murray's collected just a little tad under that, like $2.25 million from the medical establishment. What's her name? I want to keep saying Castro.
Oh, yeah, Cortez Masto.
Cortez Masto.
Self-identified Catholic.
Yeah.
Self-identified Catholic. Yep.
And well, Patty Murray too. I mean, these people have gotten millions and millions of dollars every year from the very industry that Kennedy is saying this needs to be brought into check. I mean, talk about immoral and unethical and everything else. I mean, it's not illegal because the various Supreme Court rulings on who can give whatever to whatever campaigns and stuff. But something can be legal and still be a horrible evil. Abortion, slavery. But one thing I do want to bring together is I've got a clip here of Elizabeth Warren losing her mind about, I mean, they all did, all the Democrats. Bernie Sanders put up a chart of like here's a onesie and it says, no vaccines, or I'm a baby, no vaccine or whatever. Are you going to denounce this? I mean, they're losing their flipping minds over it. And I've got to wonder if there's any of those like Lindsey Graham type senators who are like, I don't think I can vote for him, who are sitting back and watching this because, it's come down to like a very tiny little handful of senators. Are there any Republicans watching this going, what in the hell? Really? So your point doesn't become more logical because you're screaming it at somebody. And I will notice also, make note just before we cut to this clip, the pushback that Trump's nominees have given these people right on the spot. I mean, Hegseth, Pam Bondi, here with, RFK, they have not backed down. They've gone right back at them, tooth and nail. That used to be seen, certainly from Republican nominees, as kind of, not playing cricket. And, we don't do that. Well, this group does. And I think it's kind of endemic of Trump's approach. We're coming in with flamethrowers. We're not tinkering with the edges of the government. We are change agents because these institutions are corrupted, and we're going to get rid of them. That's the message here. But in the meantime, watch this little exchange with Kennedy and, of course, one of the screaming memes of the Democratic side.
I was raised in a time where we did not have a chronic disease epidemic. When my uncle was president, 2% of American kids had chronic disease. Today, 66% have chronic disease. We spend zero on chronic disease during the Kennedy administration. Today, we spend $4.3 trillion a year. With 77% of our kids cannot qualify for military service. When I was a kid, the typical pediatrician would see one case of diabetes in his or her lifetime, 40 or 50-year career. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through her office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. And the most recent data from NIH shows 38% of teens are diabetic or pre-diabetic. Autism rates have gone from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 1,500, depending on what studies you look at. In my generation today, 70-year-old men, 1 in 34 in my kids' generation. We've seen this explosion of autoimmune disease, of allergic diseases. This is not just a economic issue. It's not just a national security issue. It is a spiritual issue, and it is a moral issue. We cannot live up to our role as an exemplary nation, as a moral authority around the world. And we're writing off an entire generation of kids.
Yeah, Stephen, I think one of the things that's interesting about that, probably the most interesting thing, is she's trying to impugn his integrity, saying that he wants to get rich off the HHS, secretariat office. I'm like, what? And he says, you want me to say I'm not going to sue, as the head of HHS, if he's confirmed, I'm not going to sue pharmaceutical companies that, make these various vaccines that are damaging or, whatever. Or how about big ag? I mean, remember, how's all this stuff getting into our body? There's the medical part of it, the vaccines, bunches of vaccines. But there's the food that's grown by big ag. And then there's the chemical manufacturers that are coming up with all the crap that goes into those foods. And then people get sick. And then that's when Big Med and Big Farm step in. There's a whole network here of folks living off, businesses and a medical industrial complex living off people being sick from earlier decisions further up the food chain. It's wild that Elizabeth Warren is trying to zero in, not on that big topic, which everybody knows. She's like, well, you want to get rich, Bobby.
I'm asking about fees from suing drug companies. Will you agree not to do that?
You're asking me to not sue drug companies,
no,
and I'm not going to agree to that,
drug
Senator.
companies as much as you want.
I'm not going to agree to not sue drug companies or anybody. I'll comply with all the ethical guidelines.
That's not the question. You have said
you're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
These accusations coming from a woman, as you said, who has received nearly $3 billion worth of support from the pharmaceutical industry. It's absurd. And, again, Kennedy he's loaded. He's wealthy enough. He doesn't need the HHS position to advance himself any further. He's a Kennedy, and he's doing this because he cares. He has integrity. He's basically, all his family have turned against him. His freaking niece has come out and accused him of terrible things. Just the night before, basically his hearing began. He has sacrificed a great deal for his beliefs, and that's why he's putting himself through this. And just as with Trump, there are certain things, certain positions of his that we do not agree with as faithful Catholics, Orthodox Catholics, but his natural virtue, his goodwill is shining through here, and I respect that man tremendously. And as you said, it's clear that RFK is not. He's not fighting senators. He's fighting their puppet masters, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Eli Lilly, Merck, the big pharma and its army of Goliaths, basically. And that's clear when you see this political theater unfolding on the Senate floor. It's nuts.
When you think about go back to 2020 with the vaccines, what was the COVID vaccines? 3 major pharmaceutical companies all came up with their own little, they're not vaccines. They weren't vaccines. They were mRNA, things to go in and screw up your body. There are now I was just listening to a presentation before we started shooting today, started recording today, that this enormous group of doctors and everybody are saying, we need to end those vaccines. There's all sorts of studies that say they killed people. They weren't effective, as they were saying. I mean, people have been sort of following this, know that. Some of us were suspicious of that sort of thing all the way back at the very beginning. If you remember, when we were all sitting in Detroit going, that's not a vaccine. Vaccine, takes a weakened portion of whatever the virus is, shoots it in you so your body can make its own immunity. That's a vaccine. These aren't vaccines. These go in and alter the makeup of your cells. But I think the thing that was the most heads up on that was when it came out pretty quickly that part of the whole Operation Warp Speed thing, which Trump was wrong about, was that none of these manufacturers could be sued. Like, whoa, wait, what? A giant multi-zillion dollar international global company that can do anything it wants to get government contracts in the hundreds of billions a few times over isn't accountable, isn't able to be held accountable for any side effects or anything. It rushed something to market like that. And of course, there's Elizabeth Warren. You need to not be able to sue these vaccine makers because of your own lining your own pockets. That's really kind of the only place she and the rest of the Dems have to go with that. They have to accuse him of being greedy, and that's why he would want to sue them. Not because they should be sued and have to pay back trillions in dollars they collectively got. This is a big one. This is a big one.
It is. It is, and again, we've seen this in recent years. Anytime a Democrat, a leftist, accuses someone, MAGA or otherwise, some conservative, of doing something, we need to take a much closer look, because chances are they are doing the very thing that they're accusing the MAGA individual of. It's just Eisenhower. Before he handed power, over to JFK, went on national television and he warned about the threat that the military-industrial complex played, the threat it was to the United States, because war is profitable. Well, the same thing is going on here. The pharmaceutical industrial complex. They have a big interest in keeping people sick and making Americans sick, keeping them sick, because they can give us these little remedies. There's a great deal of money in that. All you have to do is to look at the profit margins of Big Pharma, basically from, compare the 2019 to 2021. See how they soared, how they skyrocketed. The evidence is there.
Yeah, it's crazy. I want to sort of stick on the whole thing here. Yeah, obviously RFK has some problems, with regard to vis-a-vis Catholicism and the truth, and natural moral law with regard to abortion and things. But as you said, he has that natural virtue step ingredient in his makeup, which is in the political world is translated into just common sense. And I just want to play this clip of him, essentially saying, what he would do. And how the world is so different than when he was a kid. Let's take a listen.
If confirmed, how could we work together to integrate nutrition-based interventions into our healthcare programs like Medicaid and Medicare?
Well, there are many ways that we can do that. The federal funding of the SNAP program, for example, and of school lunch programs could be a driver for helping kids. We shouldn't be giving 60% of the kids in school processed food that is making them sick. We shouldn't be spending 10% of the SNAP program on sugar drinks. So we have a direct ability to change things there. We also, in Medicaid and Medicare, we need to focus more on outcome-based medicine, on putting people in charge of their own health care, of making them accountable for their own health care so they understand the relationship between eating and getting sick. Most importantly, we need to deploy NIH and FDA to doing the research to understand the relationship between these different food additives and chronic disease, so that Americans understand it and make sure that Americans are aware. But I don't want to take food away from anybody. If you like a cheeseburger, a McDonald's cheeseburger, a Diet Coke, which my boss loves.
I mean, how can you, Stephen, not cheer for this guy? Seriously.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Unless, of course, you're in the pocket of Big Pharma and Big Ag.
Right. Yeah, unless your pocketbook is threatened there. Yeah, again, and he's right. We have seen. I remember when I was a kid, growing up. He talked about when he was a kid, not having all these allergies and these, the levels of autism and all that. Same for me. And I came, 20, 30 plus years after he did.
I remember the first time I was actually kind of introduced to the, things are different world. I don't remember exactly when it was. I was on a trip somewhere and they made the announcement, no peanuts on the flight.
Right. Exactly.
I'm like, what? No peanuts?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you ever got on a plane was peanuts. Yeah. You could have as many as you want. And then all of a sudden it just became a thing. And I'm like, what is that? Like, remember, certainly was the case when I was a kid, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches all over the place in the school cafeteria. Mm-hmm. That's what everybody ate. You lived on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And then all of a sudden, everybody's got a peanut allergy. Everybody's got gluten. Everybody's got celiac disease. It's like, where the hell did all of this come from?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's fascinating. My mom has a really interesting perspective. She was a teacher. She taught every grade of elementary over the course of her career. She started teaching in 1959 and she retired in 2000. So basically, she watched the unraveling of American society over the course of decades, as it affected kids. She always said, the only two professions who understand how bad it is in the United States, morally, socially, culturally, are cops and teachers. Yeah. And I thought, she's probably got a point there. But she talks about that. When she started the first several decades of her career, there were no autistic children. There were no allergies like this, and then it was only in the last, maybe 15 years of her career that she started noticing this stuff just beginning to pop up. Well, she retired 25 years ago. And since then, it has just absolutely skyrocketed. It's continued to soar. So
you've got half the classes sitting there with ADHD and, they can't do this and they can't do that. And
right.
It's like, well, what happened?
Yep, exactly. And, if these conditions are treatable, like the ADHD, what is it? Feed them pills, just give them pills and, medicate them. And, most kids are on something now for whatever condition they have, so RFK is right. This is ultimately, it's a moral issue. It's a spiritual issue. It is morally repugnant.
We are soul and body. And they 100%. Work in tandem and against each other all the time. You can't have one of those legs of that stool be all corrupt and broken down and everything and it not impact the other one.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, very true.
It's extraordinary. I mean, there's really no words for it. And I got to say again, step out, big picture, 60,000 foot picture. I mean, kudos to Trump. If he's not listening to RFK and he's not thinking, that's right. Again, this is a guy who lives on McDonald's cheeseburgers and Diet Cokes. I read somewhere, or he said on, maybe it was Rogan, I don't know, something. It was, he drinks 12 Diet Cokes a day. He's 78 and he's more active. He gets like 3 hours of sleep, and he's the absolute poster boy for everything you shouldn't do if you want to live healthy. But some people have good genes. I mean, my dad ate like garbage, after I left school or left home for 45 years, I guess, or whatever it was. And he ate donuts every day and, horrible stuff. And, died when he was 88. So some people just had the genes, I guess. Plus, older people, when they were young, children were actually getting nutrition. So whatever impact that made on them as they grew into adults, maybe we had a little bit more leeway, to avoid some of this stuff because of our early childhood nutrition. But very quickly, with all the opposition he's getting, Stephen, give us we're getting close to time here, but give us a little quick introduction to at least one billionaire who says, you lying, cheating SOB Democrats, you don't vote him in, I'm getting rid of you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, his former running mate, he was obviously, before coming on aboard Team Trump, he was running for president as an independent candidate. His VP running mate, basically, Nicole Shanahan, as you said, a billionaire, very, very wealthy woman. She came out earlier this week and basically put his opponents in the Senate on notice, warning them that if they vote against him, that she will personally use her wealth and power to take them down. And I just hats off to her. Now, again, we've got a clip of her explaining all of this. You'll see she's a liberal woman. She's not a good Christian conservative, but she gets care.
It. She gets it.
She gets it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's take a listen.
I urge everyone to call their U.S. senators over the following days and demand they vote yes on Bobby's nomination. He is more than qualified. He's proven, principled, and prepared to lead. I'll share a list below of key senators. If they represent your state, they need to hear from you. If they don't, please call your own senator and ask them to vote yes. We need as many votes as we can get. So this hasn't been widely reported, but in 2020, I cut large checks to Chuck Schumer to help Democrats flip 2 Senate seats in Georgia from red to blue. The 2 candidates I helped elect, Senator Raphael Warnock and Senator John Ossoff, please know I will be watching your votes very closely. I will make it my personal mission that you lose your seats in the Senate if you vote against the future health of America's children. And more than that, I also want to say to Senators Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Bill Cassidy, Tom Tillis, James Lankford, Cory Booker, John Fetterman, Bernie Sanders, and Catherine Cortez Masto, this is a bipartisan message, and it comes directly from me. While Bobby may be willing to play nice, I won't. If you vote against him, I will personally fund challengers to primary you in your next election, and I will enlist hundreds of thousands to join me. Big Pharma and Big Ag have exploited us for far too long. It ends now. You're either on the side of transparency and accountability, or you are standing in the way. The choice is yours. Please choose wisely.
So hats off to her, and I think every MAGA supporter needs to get behind her. If RFK is not confirmed, that is going to make a lot of people very, very angry. We need to channel that anger into getting a new crop of senators onto Capitol Hill in 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to wrap up, Stephen, if I can, with a little sort of personal anecdote. You and I were kind of joking about this before taping today. I like some things like rice pudding. I do rice pudding and tapioca pudding and things like that. And I'm spending a lot of time these days just cooking. I enjoy cooking. I always have, but just say, no, I never tried this before. So a couple of days ago, I got the idea. I said, you know what? I actually like tapioca pudding. And it was specifically because all this RFK stuff. I said, let me check and see. And maybe I should make my own tapioca pudding. But in case I screw it up, I still like tapioca pudding, so I'll just go buy one of them. So take a look at this picture. This is the Cozy Shack, little 6-pack tub thing that you get. And, I've always liked the taste of that. I don't buy it with great frequency, but when I do, I'm like, yum, yum, this is good. Well, look at this next picture. I actually made my own tapioca pudding the other night. It's coconut milk, organic little granules, tapioca granules, a little dash of vanilla, and a little dash of sugar, cane sugar. It's all organic, everything. And then I made it. I was like, I thought, I'm looking at the pot, and I'm like, well, this looks weird. Why isn't this doesn't look like what I'm used to eating. And I let it cool down, put it in the fridge overnight, and brought them out. And look at this picture of sort of the side by side. And my homemade tapioca there in the little bowl, it's largely white. Well, that's because all of the ingredients in it are white, with the exception of a little dash of vanilla just to give it a kick. But the other one there, the Cozy Shack, and all the other ones I was looking at, they're all yellow. I'm like, where'd the yellow come from? There's no ingredients in tapioca that are yellow. And in the store, I looked around on the back of thing. I was like, what is this? So again, a bunch of chemical words I couldn't pronounce but it said in parentheses, added coloring. I'm like, why would you make your tapioca be yellow when it's actually in its natural habitat, natural native form, white? By the way, mine's better. Just for the record. Probably the ingredients, maybe not the cook. But again, I think this is one of those things that, it's just a very small, little, tiny anecdotal example of what he's talking about, what RFK's talking about. I have no idea what's in that cup. And you taste it, and I'm like, well, mine, you taste tapioca, the little bead things all over the place. It's like raisins in Raisin Bran, 2 scoops in every mouthful. In that, that's all pudding and an occasional tapioca bead. I'm like, what is this? What's the gelatinous substance that I'm eating here? This is a big deal. It's a big deal. Not my tapioca. It's a big deal to me. But what he's pointing at is a really, really big deal. Steve, 30 seconds, bring us home.
All right, yeah, I think that's a good example. It's I think more of us are eating more Franken food than we can imagine. I used to. I'm very grateful for what's happened with RFK and Make America Healthy Again. I used to just dismiss this kind of stuff. I'll be honest. I was not thinking critically. I was not open to arguments. I just thought, eat organic. Well, that's just a bunch of hippie crap. I lived in California for several years. I've been, exposed to all of that stuff. I just thought it was leftist nonsense, or at least people were. But it's real. It's the real deal. And I think he's provided a very valuable service to the United States by bringing this issue front and center, kind of awakening a lot of conservatives to it. And I think if he gets in, he will, like Trump, revolutionize our country.
Yeah. You can see why the opposition is firmly aligned against him. Let's hope and pray that he gets through the committee confirmation vote, then goes out onto the floor, and we'll see how that goes. A lot of guys are going to have to sit around and think long and hard about their political careers and, what they're doing to America and particularly America's kids. Stephen, thanks very much for being on, brother. That's it. We got to leave you now and say goodbye for the moment. That's it for today. I'm Gary Michael Voris coming to you from Houston, Texas. Yeah. God love you.